As things heat up at Chiefs OTAs, we're going to run down the top 5 list of offensive weapons not named Patrick Mahomes today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. It's Locked On Chiefs, part of Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day, wherever you are, starting on YouTube, where we would ask you to please like and sub and hit that bell. And going out on all the audio platforms, including Spotify and Apple. We appreciate all your listenership. Going to be a fun show today. We appreciate you checking us out. First, if you would listen to another Locked On show, maybe one of the competition here in the AFC West. I think there's a lot going on in different places. You can also get in the text line right now. It's a new way to communicate. We're trying it out. You can get on there by texting 816-357-8781 and get in the group now. Going to be something that we're going to feature here come the season. We'd like to get you guys on board right now. So that said, I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, and RGR Football.
And I'm Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner, and we're also going to add in more when it comes to training camp and preseason games, and probably games, obviously, when you get into the season. We'll talk about signings and free agency moving forward as well in the draft next year. So this is going to be something that we're going to kind of build out and do a lot of stuff with. So here's the number again. Please give us a text, and we would love to hear from you, and you will be texting with us. So there you go. Lots to talk about when you start looking at the top 5 players and not named Patrick Mahomes. I'm kind of a little annoyed because he is obviously the best offensive weapon the Chiefs have. And so I guess we're going to do kind of a top 6 in a way, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, or a 7, because let's be real. Should we even be counting Travis Kelce? He's clearly the top weapon here. He is getting older, but that's changed nothing status-wise. He is the way this offense flows. It has to go from Mahomes to someone, and that's primarily going to be Kelce year in, year out until he decides to hang him up and go do media or whatever he's going to do. Am I in any way incorrect?
No, and I think you're probably right. Maybe we shouldn't even mention Kelce. So let's just do top 7. We're going to say number 1's Mahomes. Number 2 is Kelce. That's going to be our starting point. I think that makes a lot of sense to go that direction because those are the 2 obvious ones that we already know about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing, right? Okay, so that becomes then option A to option B, or in the pass game specifically, Kelce is option A. What comes after that? How can this roster, this 2023 group that will become this version of the Kansas City Chiefs, going to be a little bit different than the 2022 championship team, going to be different than the 2019 championship, clearly. There will be common threads, but who are the weapons that can step forward? Clearly from day one for me is been 3 practices. It's been 3 days. Nothing's changed. It's Kadarius Toney as weapon number 1 because he is the most dynamic guy that can catch the ball right now in this offense. Right now, today, he can do it all. Can he do that all season long? That's a different discussion. But he is weapon number 1 after Travis Kelce in my mind.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think that when you look at what Kadarius Toney is, and I guess we got to say it with this caveat, we're going into this assuming everybody's going to be healthy the entire season. If Kadarius Toney is healthy the entire season, I have no doubt in my mind he's going to get over 1,000 yards and he may end up getting over 10 touchdowns just because I think he is that dynamic and that is what he's going to be able to do. And I also want to say really quick, because we haven't touched on it, maybe Matt and you touched on it, it does look like they're going to be getting rid of the kickoff, which isn't going to affect Toney as much, but you would have to think that the next one's going to be punt. So that's another dynamic that they possibly will be taking away that he is very good at. Of course, if he's your number 1 receiver, he's not going to be returning punts, but just something to throw in there
Better
as well.
not be. He just better not be.
Yeah, I mean, remember what they did with Patrick, not this team, but they've done some things with Patrick Peterson. AB used to return punts from time to time with Pittsburgh because they are that good. I think Toney is that guy. I think he has that kind of ability at that position. So if you need a late breaking punt return, maybe he's a guy that you lean on to do that, but we'll see.
So the Tyreek Hill treatment, basically.
Yeah.
Take him off there unless you need that spark and let him be that guy for you. Put him out there when you need it. Okay, that works for me.
And the other thing that Tyreek Hill did is he also made teams kick away from him. And that can be just as valuable almost, because sometimes, when kickers are trying to be directional, they sometimes shank the ball, which gives you more yardage anyway. So
that makes sense. And I'm okay. Again, we'll have the longevity discussion another time, but as a pair now, we're going to get to weapons. What will it be? It'll be 4 through 7 here in the next couple of segments. But just before we get to all that, the pairing, not just Kelce is A now in terms of the next one is Kadarius Toney. As that pair, as a 1-2 punch, where do you see that going, and how good can that be in this season?
Man, I really do think that if Toney can stay healthy, I think that both Kelce and Toney can go over 1,000 yards each. And Mahomes is going to be in a situation where he could be throwing for 5,500 yards. The biggest thing that's going to hold Mahomes and his stats back is going to be Andy Reid. And I say that because Andy Reid is very, very bad at taking his foot off the gas a little too early and not just throttling teams when he has the chance to.
Yeah.
And that causes a lot of close games, which are games that shouldn't be close. And you're sitting there going, Mahomes could throw for 5,500 yards and 50 touchdowns, probably a lot, if Andy Reid would let him run up the score.
That's a very good point. Andy wants to minimal effort, get the win, get out the door. Okay, does that change? I don't think so because of these weapons. I think that's a philosophical issue that we're not going to solve by who is getting the ball. But I think they play off of each other, and I like the low drag game for Kadarius Toney. I love the screen game for Kadarius Toney. Obviously, he can go downtown as well, and we've seen him make big catches down the field as well. So he can hit it from any spot, really. So Mahomes is 1, Kelce's 2. Kadarius Toney is 3, but on this top 5 list, Kadarius Toney is the number 1 weapon, not named Mahomes or Kelce. Who comes next? We're getting to the next guy, the second weapon on the list right after this. But got to tell you, NBA playoffs are in full swing, and you can get in the action right now by going to FanDuel. It's super, super easy. You can get a no-sweat first bet right now for becoming a new member, and that means you can make a bet, and if you bet on the Nuggets to lose and you got thwarted, that bad bet can earn you up to $1,000 in bonus bets after the fact, just by doing that no sweat first bet when you sign up right now. It doesn't get any better. The playoffs are here. There's all kinds of bets that you can go lay right now to America's number 1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel. It's at FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can see it right down here. FanDuel.com/lockedon to get that no sweat first bet for up to $1,000 in bonus bets right now at FanDuel, America's sports betting partner of the NBA, MLB, and the NFL. Weapon number 2. This is where debate comes in, I think. We talked about 2 pass catchers already, that just to get the first guy off the list. Where does it go for you from there? Who is the second weapon not named Kelce?
Second weapon not named Kelce or Toney. I'd say it has to be probably Isaiah Pacheco. And as weird as that sounds, I think it has to be him based on what we saw last season. And I fully expect Skyy Moore is going to take a big step forward, but until we see him on the field, it's going to be hard to know how big of a step forward he's going to be taking.
I agree. And pleasantly, I agree with you. And who's number 2 here, too? I didn't expect you to go Pacheco. I thought I was going to be carrying that torch the whole way. You got to have some balance, and he proved that he can provide that spark. Now, you're going to give him some backup. You're going to give him some guys chasing him, keep him fresh, keep him on his toes. But especially after we found out he's coming off of the injury, I think that just feeds into it more, that you can find more ways to get more yardage out of him. Maybe it's going back to something that's just a little bit more simple. And I don't want to put too much read on him in terms of where he needs to make his cuts, because I think vision is probably one of the things he needs work on. But you have to have that balance to just get it out of Pat's hands sometimes. And I think this can be expanded quite a bit. I think we saw good production in counter. I thought we saw good production in outside zone. Saw decent production in the power. Short yardage is still the issue. But I also think that you can get back into the pitch game, and you can do more with him just getting him to the corner and letting him get downhill. So I agree with you. I think he will also be the steadier force, and that's why I would call him weapon number 2 as well, because everything after that is about target share and how much you get the ball. And so Kelce obviously will be, an extension of Patrick's arm, then Kadarius Toney, then Isaiah Pacheco, and then who comes in next for you?
Well, and really quick, I want to say this on Pacheco. It's a little bit different when you start talking weapons. If you're talking production, total production, I think it's Pacheco. If you're talking about explosion and explosive plays, that could go in a completely different direction.
It very well could. So what are you
Uh,
talking about? Who's third on your list?
well, 3 on my list, I think I believe in Skyy Moore. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to have a good year. I think that they saw enough from him last year. I fully expect that he got into the playbook. He got things figured out this offseason. He's going to know the positions. And I think he has a bigger role in this offense because of what he can do and where he is going to make his money is going to be in the intermediate game and in the short game to an extent. And I think that's a very valuable part, even though it may not be explosive plays. There's a possibility to move the chains a lot and be very productive at those ranges.
I can totally see where you're going there. I hope that is the case because somebody's got to pick up a little bit more of the gadget stuff that I think McCall had grown used to and productive with. I think either of these pass catchers, these wide receivers that we've talked about, could be. But I agree. I think Skyy Moore is the next guy up because he can hit you in a number of ways. It's not just down the field. It's not just jet sweep action. He can do a little bit of everything. And I think once he gets into the flow of his second season, what we've seen on film over at RGR is that he was the best blocker at the wide receiver position last year. He's in to get into the mix. And I think that means as a ball carrier as well. So I think he does get some of those jet sweep type options. I think the screen game is going to be good for him too. I'd like to see them try to fake one side and throw it back to him in with a wide receiver or a tight end out front of him. I think they can do games with how much they try to get these two guys the ball.
Yeah, and the other question I have is when it comes to him doing jet sweep motion, I mean, that's not his skill set. That's not his best skill set. What can Reed design for him? That's the bigger thing that Reed does that is so underappreciated, I guess, in the NFL, at least, especially at the Kansas City level. I mean, there are, higher ups in the NFL that appreciate what Reed does offensively, but at the Kansas City level, we forget all the things that Reed does that he brings to the offense that maybe weren't there the year before. I fully expect that's what's going to happen with Skyy Moore. I think that they drafted him knowing his skill set and having a plan for him. And last year, I think the plan went about what they expected, although obviously you don't want him to have the fumbles on punt returns. But otherwise, I think they're probably where they need to be with him, and I think that they know what he can do. They know what he's capable of. And there's different things you can do with Skyy Moore that you don't have the capability of doing elsewhere. The jet sweep thing, I don't know that Kansas City is going to continue to use it. Teams started to figure it out towards the end of last year.
True.
And too many teams are doing it across the NFL, so it's something that defensive coordinators are having to plan for a lot more.
I'll tell you what I don't want to see is a bunch of wide receiver option throws because Toney can throw a pass. Skyy Moore was a quarterback in high school. Like, I'm not ready for that. So let's just keep it to creativity that involves carrying the ball. Thank you very much. But after that, this offense opens up. Yeah, hey, bah humbug. I'm fine with that.
I knew you would be.
What comes next is the big question. And I think it gets opened up here. Who's the next guy up? We feel confident in the two guys that scored touchdowns in the Super Bowl being the top two weapons outside of Travis Kelce. Who comes next? Is it depth? Is it physicality? Is it somebody can go get the ball in the air? Who is the next weapon on the backside of this? So there are a number of options here, and I tried to give it away a little bit before this segment. But you have back shoulder throws that you can throw. You have the deep overs and the things that the times that MVS showed up last year and made big plays were on some deeper downfield plays. You have that option. You actually have a couple of other guys that I think could step in here. But weapon number 4, where do you stand?
This one's tough because this one, I saw development from Skyy Moore from beginning of year to end. I didn't really see that from MVS last year, other than he stepped up in the playoff game when he absolutely had to.
Mm-hmm.
If he could get that performance like he had in the AFC Championship game all year round, there's no way Kansas City's letting him go next year or the year after that, because he is going to be insanely valuable to this team and he will be way underpaid. And that is coming from somebody that's been very critical of MVS. But if he's able to do what he did in the AFC Championship game, he will be well worth the paycheck that he's going to be getting the next 2 seasons. But that's the question with him, is can he be consistent? Can he be that guy? In order to be a weapon, you have to be that guy. And honestly, I haven't seen it. So I'm going to go a different direction. I would love to say it's going to be another wide receiver. I just don't know that you're going to be able to see it from the rookie this year. And I don't think Justin Watson's going to have a big explosion after what we saw last year. So I'm going to go Jerick McKinnon.
Okay. I think that's a little premature. He was on the list for me, but I just don't know if you can have back-to-back performances where he had 9 touchdowns. MVS came in at just under 700 yards. McKinnon just over 500 yards on the season. Is that reproducible would be my question. So for my 4th, I will take MVS because I think he's got a shorter reach to jump up to that Juju level. Juju came in at 933 last year. I think he can score a little bit more. So I'll take him as 4. And you give me your pitch for your guy. Why should McKinnon be your 4 and my 5?
I'm putting him at 4 because he's more consistent and because I think that he has more explosive plays than MVS has and has had, and the consistency is the key for me. I'm not saying MVS isn't going to have better production when it comes to yards, but they put McKinnon in so many big situations, and there are so many things that he does that make explosive plays for other players, and I think I'm taking that into account as well. Look at his blocking in 3rd down. And yeah, he's not an explosive playmaker on those situations where he's picking up a blitzer, but half the time that's where Pat is throwing deep and hitting a big play. He's definitely responsible for part of that. So yeah. I'm looking at it from that perspective. I know that's a little bit off, but I'm not looking at it as just production. I'm looking at what he does as an all-around player. And I think that he adds a lot to this team. And that's why I'm very glad he's back, and especially at the contract he's back at. And Andy Reid really knows how to use him. I think that's really a big key as well.
Okay, so you have McKinnon at 4. I have MVS at 4. Who is your 5?
I think you have to go MVS. I based on what we saw last year, I don't know where else you could go. I mean, is it possible you have the rookie wide receiver step in and do great things? Maybe. I'd love to see it. But Kansas City hasn't had a rookie wide receiver that's done great things for him for a very long time. Tyreek Hill was one of the best that they've had under Andy Reid, and I don't think he scratched 500 yards his rookie season, did he? So I just don't know that I see it. Now, this is a different body type than they're used to having at that position, so it's a little bit different. But Chris Conley had a lot of explosion, had a lot of ability, and never really took off in this offense. So to me, it has to be MVS, and if he can be more consistent, he easily takes over number 4.
Okay, I for all the same reasons that I had him at 4, you have him at 5. That makes sense. I'm going out on a limb here because I think it gets a bit murky here. Anything beyond this point, can you really expect Rashee Rice to outperform Skyy Moore from last year? Skyy put up 250, and did he even score a receiving touchdown in the regular season, or was it just the Super Bowl?
It was just Super Bowl.
So you'd hope that Rashee Rice can do that, but again, it's a transition. And I think that's the track record shows that we can't really count on that. So who can we count on? Who feels the burn, as I like to put it? Is it Justin Watson? Because he's back on the roster. He's got maybe 2 years here. He's still got something to prove. Could it be somebody we don't recognize right now? Could it be Richie James coming over? Could it be Smith Marset coming over? Guys that we don't have expectations for. My money's not on them. There's one guy that I think we've been pulling for quite a while. He's getting older, and this is kind of the put up or shut up phase. He's been very, very adamant about working out with Patrick and the guys here so far this spring. I think that carries over And I have 4-leaf clover in the back. I've got a rabbit's foot. So like everything is getting rubbed right now to make sure that Jody Fortson stays healthy and he can be that number 5 weapon in this offense this season.
If he can be the number 5 weapon in this offense is going to be dangerous because he gives them something that they don't have anywhere else at any other person on this roster. And he has the ability to box out in the end zone, go Skyy for the ball, do all those types of things in the end zone, which could be huge. And they've never really used in Kansas City. I've never understood it because Fortson's shown he can do it. Why aren't you using that in the red zone and taking advantage of that, getting him 4 or 5 or 6 touchdowns a year, doing something like that, or using him as a decoy? I mean, you could do it 2 or 3 times and people are going to have to start, watching it, and then you're going to get other people open. So there's a lot of value there. I would love to see Jody Fortson be able to be a guy that could get 500 to 700 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns. That'd be awesome.
I don't even think the bar's there, to tell you the truth. When you go back and you look at the pass catchers, obviously Pacheco gets dual yardage because he's attacking the ball in several ways. The number 5 receiver on this roster last year had 315 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think Jody Fortson, if he's healthy for the season, can outperform that at least. Does he have to get to 700? Not necessarily, but he could be 500 yards pretty easily. I think that's worth number 5. So maybe I'm on a limb, but I'll take it.
No, and I guess where I'm looking is I think that it's possible that you're going to see some of those yards coming from Kelce. Because I love Travis Kelce, but they need to use him a little bit less. And he could still get well over 1,000 yards, but if they get him down to where he's playing 70-75% of the snaps, you're going to be in a much better position for the next couple of seasons than he is playing as much as he's playing right now.
Agreed.
I would love it if Travis Kelce could get 1,700 yards as a tight end, but at the same time, you don't want him out there doing that type of thing unless he's catching some very deep passes, which isn't usually what he does.
Agreed. So we're pretty good unison. Obviously, Kelce and Mahomes are out front. Kadarius Toney, we agree, is the number 1 weapon outside of that pair. We agree that Isaiah Pacheco is the most likely number 2 weapon overall outside of that. We agree Skyy Moore comes in at 3rd. And then it gets a little hairy. You've got Jarek. I've got MVS. At 5, you've got MVS, and I've got Jody Fortson. What do you guys have? Tell us down in the comments down below underneath this YouTube video. Tell us in the Spotify reviews. Tell us in the Apple reviews. We haven't had many in this stretch since the Super Bowl. So if you like what we're doing, hit that 5-star if you would, and leave us an Apple review. We would appreciate it. You do want to hit the subtext for us as well. If you want to get in on the communication standard, it's 816. You folks over in Kansas can use it too. It's 816-357-8781, and you can get in on the action too. We're going to build this group up so we get to the season. We're looking forward to it and for training camp. So thank you for participating. We're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to take a look at who are the defensive impact makers that would be the mirror of these 5. Who are the top 5 defenders that can change the outcome of the 2023 season tomorrow on this show. We'll be back on Monday as well. So we're here 5 days a week. Don't forget about that. Thanks for being with us today, and we'll talk to you then.